5, 3, 9, 7, 1, 5.
Nach. For those of you who don't speak Klingon, hello. Or, for a more accurate translation, what do you want? Because the Klingon are not particularly a friendly people.
Good job outing us even more as nerds than people probably already thought we were, Samantha.
I'm pretty sure they know.
Let's just throw in Trekkie on top of everything else.
Accio coffee. Let's get real about this.
Bring in your disgusting Earl Grey.
Right? I definitely feel like I should be drinking hot tea for this episode instead of coffee.
I'd probably drink some hot tea if it wasn't so gross.
Anyway, welcome to this week's episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast, home of the mysterious and the macabre, where we sit in a studio every week challenging conventional thought. We are your hosts, Samantha Carter
and Sarah Jones.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast if you haven't already. If you have successfully completed phase 1 of your training, don't be afraid to go above and beyond and share our podcast with your neighbors, friends, and family.
Your mailman, UPS, and FedEx delivery person.
And the person standing in line behind you in the coffee shop, provided they aren't a creepy kid with black eyes asking to come to your house.
This message will self-destruct in 5, 4, 3, 2.
On that note, let's start the episode with an inspiring and appropriate quote. Things are only impossible until they are not. Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
You know, as much as I love Captain Jean-Luc Picard, and I do, I really do.
Bring your ID card to the border guard.
That's right. I feel like he is less Captain Jean-Luc Picard and more Captain Obvious with that statement.
That's kind of a fair assessment.
I mean, things really are only impossible until they are not.
Just be nice until it's time to be not nice.
Who was that? That was from Roadhouse.
Roadhouse
boat right there.
Sam Elliott.
For real. People are all hung up on Patrick Swayze, but Sam Elliott. He's the one.
He made that movie.
I'm with you.
I've never been a mustache person, but
I like that one.
Okay.
Today, we're going to take you on... I said today like that. I'm just going to calm down a little on that. Today, we're going to take you on a mental vacation. A trip around the world without ever having to leave the safety of, well, wherever the hell you are right now. Keep your arms and legs and other free-flying appendages inside the ride, and remember that in case of a crash landing, your seat may or may not function as a flotation device. But first, since this is the very first episode of 2020, Happy New Year, by the way.
Roaring 20s. Bring back the suit, guys.
Get that Gatsby on.
Rawr.
Let's get sappy and once again remind you of how much we appreciate you listening to the show as we move forward into the new year. This had been a goal of ours for quite a while, and we took our time to put in a lot of work in an effort to do it well. We appreciate all of the support we've gotten from listeners as well as other podcasters we've been lucky enough to network with. We hope you'll continue listening and sharing and look for some new and exciting developments this year. Make sure you're with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, along with whatever podcast app you subscribe to and listen from. Stay in contact, interact with us, as we love to hear your suggestions on what we can do to make the show better.
Unfortunately for you, you also get the pleasure of continuing to enjoy our horrifyingly awkward Facebook Live videos in the year to come.
We apologize.
But don't worry, we'll throw in some free merch to make it more palatable. And by palatable, I mean you can drink coffee out of the merch.
Hey, you can.
And that is fabulously palatable.
It is literally palatable.
Or you can follow the Mix Great example and drink whiskey out of it.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, do you like politics, conspiracy, current events, and just plain whimsical nonsense?
These topics and more can be found on the Question Everything Guys podcast.
A weekly episode podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and various other podcast hosting platforms.
No topic is ever too serious. None of the jokes are politically correct, and all of the questions come with minimal answers.
Huh?
What?
Come join your host, Lanny B.
Sean.
The Mick on the Question Everything Guys podcast. That's gold.
That said, sit back and enjoy this exploration of the mystery surrounding megalithic sites around the world.
Before we get into the sites, let's discuss what exactly a megalithic site is. Well, straight from the infinite wisdom of Wikipedia, a megalith is a large stone that has been
monolith, actually. the stone itself is the monolith. I guess they're kind of used interchangeably, but they use monolith to describe the single stone and megalith to describe the monument.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's a large stone that has been used to construct a structure or a monument. So monolith is the stone itself. A megalith is like the result of what
So
is
like
formed.
the single stones would be monolith, and the structures, when you stack them, that's what they consider
Okay.
the megalith terminology-wise.
All right. Learning something new myself. So the term megalithic is used to describe said structures, which have been constructed without the use of any mortar or concrete, thus representing a period of prehistory which is characterized by such structures. The word megalith translates from ancient Greek mega, meaning great, and lithos, meaning stone. The term was first used by Algernon Herbert, who used the term to describe Stonehenge, which we will discuss in this episode. Most of these structures were constructed during the Neolithic period, although there are structures dating back to the earlier Mesolithic period and continued through the Mesolithic period, the Chalcolithic period, and the Bronze Age. Some of these structures did function as tombs or above-ground burial chambers, but not all of them served this purpose. A dolmen is a megalithic tomb consisting of a single chamber, structured by 2 or more megaliths. A dolmen is a megalithic tomb consisting of a single chamber, structured by 2 or more megaliths, which serve to support a flat, large, horizontal capstone or table. So now, if you hear us use the term, you'll understand what we're describing.
The first destination on today's travel itinerary is the sovereign state of Costa Rica, located in Central America. This tropical vacation destination is not only homeland to an awesome replica of Jurassic Park.
Is it?
Boom. It is also the home of over 200 mysteriously crafted stone spheres. These spheres are believed to have been carved around 1500 and 500 BC, but exact dating of the stones is pretty much impossible. It's believed that they were created by a civilization which has long since disappeared. The purpose of these spheres is yet unknown. While they appear to have sustained some damage over the years, it's believed that they were originally carved into perfect spheres. We'll post some pictures of all of these awesome structures on our Facebooks for your viewing pleasure. According to the Museum of Unnatural Mystery, which would be my favorite kind of museum, the stones were discovered in the 1930s, deep in the jungles of Costa Rica, when the United Fruit Company started searching for a new place to plant their banana trees.
I'm a banana. I'm a banana.
Look at me move. As disease was looming over the eastern plantations. Save the bananas! Save the bananas!
Okay, stop. So, while clearing out the perfect patch of forest ground on the western side of the island, the workers stumbled upon these strange stone balls, which ranged in size from just a few inches up to 7 feet in diameter.
So some big balls.
There's some huge balls. Most of these structures appeared to be perfectly round, very smooth, and most impressive of all, they were undoubtedly man-made.
And by man-made, we mean made with the assistance of aliens who visited these uncivilized societies and introduced technology to help them achieve things that they could not otherwise achieve, thus creating a more impressive ant farm for them to observe.
Right? But moving on. So the company just considered these stones to be obstacles that were in the way of their planting, so they were rolled out of the way by the workers. A daughter of one of the executives of the company, coincidentally named Doris Stone, was a director of Costa Rica's National Museum. She began archaeological studies on the stones, the findings of which were published in 1943. Some wild stories have developed over the years relating to the spheres. Skeptics argue that primitive people, with basic, non-metallic tools, could not possibly have made such perfectly round and smooth stones. Although many of the stones appear to be impressively round, most of them are not actually as perfect in shape as they might appear to be to the naked eye. In the 1950s, a researcher named Samuel Lathrop managed to obtain some of the best recorded measurements of the stones. His observations were, however, somewhat hampered by the size of the larger spheres as well as the difficulty involved with trying to get a tape measure around the spheres, which were still half buried in the ground. Not all of the balls were actually even perfectly smooth, as many...
I was going to make a joke, but never mind. It's okay. We appreciate all the abnormal balls. We accept you for who you are.
They're good too. Not all of the balls were even actually perfectly smooth, as many display evidence of the tools which were used in their construction.
The question we must ask ourselves right meow is why? What were these stone spheres used for? Because there are no written records from the culture that made them, the best way to make assumptions about their purpose is to look at how they are positioned in relation to each other, as well as other archaeological artifacts such as buildings and walls. Considering that most of the balls had been moved from their original sites, it's difficult to determine where they were originally located, thus difficult to use this as a tool for determining their purpose. Some suggest that groups of the spheres were found in geometric arrangements like lines, triangles, and parallelograms. I love that word, parallelogram.
Parallelograms.
Parallelogram. Parallelogram.
You have to say it really sultry,
Yeah, you can make it parallelogram.
It's a parallelogram.
I don't feel like I can sound sultry right now. I kind of have a cold. Parallelogram.
Sounds more like Gollum.
The parallelogram.
Oh, Lord.
More nerd stuff. Anyway. But truly, it's impossible to confirm these accounts because they were moved. However, these claims have led to speculation that they may have been created as a type of compass, or even for the purpose of astronomical observation. They may have possibly been used as a status symbol. According to John Hoops of the University of Kansas, quote, "The making and moving of the balls was probably an important social activity, probably more important than possession of the finished product. We believe that the balls may have sat in front of houses of prominent people, perhaps as a display of power or control over labor. There are some records that indicate that some spheres have been found on the top of mounds, which may validate the status symbol theory, and that's how many of these stones are being utilized to this day." Next stop, fresh pots!
Fresh pots! A much more famous example of megalithic craftsmanship is located in the British Isles, constructed nearly 5,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. Stonehenge has become a very popular tourist destination. We've all heard of Stonehenge, I hope. Stonehenge is a stone structure consisting of 2 circles of stone pillars. However, neither circle is complete, so they appear to be more like horseshoes. According to an article on EnglishHeritage.org, prior to the construction of the monuments, there appear to have been 4 or 5 pits, which have held totem pole-like posts, which date back to the Mesolithic period, which would be around 8,500 to 7,000 BC. There is no official story on how or if these posts relate in any way to the Stonehenge monuments. About 64 cremations and as many as 150 individuals have been found to have been buried at Stonehenge, which crowns the site as the largest late Neolithic cemetery in the British Isles.
A National Geographic article written by James Owens describes the different theories surrounding the construction of the monument, which include folklore alluding to the idea that Stonehenge was created by Merlin, the wizard of Arthurian legend, who magically transported the massive stones from Ireland, where giants had assembled them. Another legend which gives credit to invading Danes, who are said to have put the stones up. And yet another theory which claims that the monument is the ruins of a fallen Roman temple. Most modern interpretations are no less vivid, as some people would argue that Stonehenge is in fact a landing area for extraterrestrial spacecraft. Other rumors would have you believe that it's a giant fertility symbol which stands in the shape of a female genitalia. Respect the ladies, bruh. Also, for you MCU fans out there, Stonehenge is discussed as an area of power in the Thor Dark World film, and you can bet we are going to discuss that theory later on.
I think by far my favorite theory is the Merlin and the Giants.
I'm a big fan of that one.
I think that's the one.
I don't know. I still stand by the alien landing site.
Why? They're buried. People are buried. Why? I feel like it would associate more with like Merlin and the Giants.
I don't know. Well, if you think about it, if they considered aliens to be their gods descending from the heavens, why wouldn't you bury people at the site where they come down? I don't know. It could be sacrifice easily.
It could be sacrifice.
That's a possibility. Anyway, let's move on because we'll discuss those theories later.
Fine. In Scotland, you can find the Ring of Brogar, one of the biggest stone circles in Britain. And it's a complete circle, according to megaliths.co.uk article. The stone circle is about 341 feet in diameter, While it's believed that there were originally 60 stones in place to create this masterpiece, only 36 stones still stand today. The stones are set in a ditch, which is approximately 9 feet deep and nearly 30 feet across. There are reportedly at least 13 prehistoric burial mounds in this area of this particular monument. The ring is estimated to have been built around 2500 to 2000 BC, and it covers an area of almost 91,500 square feet.
Settled in Wiltshire, southwest England, you can find Avebury, which is a large bank and a ditch with a large outside circle stone and 2 separate smaller stone circles. This was believed to have been used for the purpose of rituals or ceremonies, like in an effort to appease the malevolent powers of nature such as cold, death, and disease. According to archaeologist Aubrey Burrell, as quoted in an article from megalithicbuilders.com, this type of structure is known as a henge. This particular henge is not perfectly round, but has a circumference of approximately 3,200 feet. There's actually, if you think about like size, we're going to continue talking about it, but if you think about size-wise, there's an entire city, like a town, built inside this structure. So it's kind of cool that there's like a village in there and they live right in the center of this freaking structure, and it's freaking cool.
That is really cool.
We'll post pictures of that as well on Facebook, because if you guys haven't seen it, it's really cool to look at. Through the use of radiocarbon dating and pollen analysis, it's been determined that the environment of lowland Britain changed around 4250 to 4000 BC during the Mesolithic era. The humans living in Britain were what we now describe as hunter-gatherers, or groups who moved around the landscape in small familial or tribal groups in search of food and other resources that they may have needed. There's a lot of interests and theories that surround the morphology of the stones. The stones used in the construction of the monuments fall into the following categories: either tall and slender or short and squat, which leads us to explore some of the historically presented theories relating to the significance of gender, as the taller stones have been considered male and the shorter ones female. Human bones, which have been found in the area, lead some to speculate that ancestor worship may have taken place at this particular monument.
Archaeologists and pseudo-archaeologists have interpreted Avebury and other nearby prehistoric monuments differently from academics. An example of one such theory is that of William Stuck, who in the late 17th century asserted that Avebury had been built by the Druids. However, theories like this have been discarded by professional archaeologists like Aubrey Burrell and considered to be more phony than factual and entirely untenable. It has been established by archaeologists since then that they were, in fact, constructed 2,000 years before the Iron Age, during the Neolithic era. There were, of course, other such theories, including that of Reverend R. Weaver, circa 1840, who argued that both Avebury and Stonehenge were built by an ancient seafaring people who many Victorian Britons believed had first brought civilization to the island. In 1872, James Ferguson presented his own theory that a monument had been constructed in the early medieval period as a commemoration to the final battle of King Arthur, and was in fact a burial site for Arthur's slain warriors. An idea presented by W.S. Blackett in 1883 alleged that Native Americans from the Appalachian Mountains crossed the Atlantic Ocean to build the great megalithic monuments of southern Britain.
I really like the whole Arthurian theory, especially when, like, Stonehenge, all the monuments are round. So you think, like, that would be a perfect monument to bury those Knights of the Round Table. Let's head on over to Easter Island. Get it? Head? Because the megalith statues are all heads.
Giant heads.
Okay, so this is one of the more famous of the megaliths. The stone blocks of the island have been artfully carved into head and torso figures, which average about 13 feet tall and weigh about 14 tons per statue. The vast amount of work to not only construct these monuments, but to move them around the island had to have been considerable. However, the purpose of the Rapa Nui people's effort to create these monuments is as yet unclear. It's widely speculated that the Moai were created in honor of their ancestors, chiefs, or other people of import, but there is little to no written and little oral history on the island, so it's nearly impossible to be sure of anything.
In spite of the lack of certain knowledge, some assumptions have been made from the evidence available. It's believed that the Rapa Nuis were people who arrived on the island via canoe. They reached the peak of their culture through the 10th and 16th centuries, during which time they had carved and erected over 900 statues on the island, somewhere between 800 AD and 1200. This is the estimated time frame in which it is guessed that they first settled the island based on the radiocarbon dating, and it's thought that their inevitable demise was likely due to their own making. Through cutting of the giant palms to clear fields and make fires, the volcanic soils were left exposed to erosion and became barren. I think most good civilizations died out due to their own mistakes.
It's all industrialization, people.
Dang it.
Frickin' frackin'.
In a 2007 article for Smithsonian Magazine, author Whitney Dangerfield explores some of the mysteries surrounding this intriguing society and attributes a large amount of the forest deconstruction to the rat population, which arrived when the people did, based on research conducted by archaeologist Terry Hunt. In a 2019 article by Emily Dixon for CNN, the reason for this specific placement of statues is explored, considering that the placement of the statues of their ancestors may have been put near the island's sources of fresh water, possibly to claim ownership of that particular source or to indicate its location.
Let's move on to one of my favorite historical cultures, the Egyptians. Egypt is home to a great number of ancient megaliths which have been found to hold astronomical significance. The Serapeum of Saqqara, discovered in 1850, has been claimed to be evidence of a lost ancient technology used thousands of years ago by its builders. The labyrinth features a system of tunnels and boxes that have been carved out of solid limestone bedrock in the desert. What's most astounding about these is the precision with which they were carved. The purpose of these boxes is speculated upon because while they have been thought to have been tombs, many of them have been found to be completely empty.
Another Egyptian site, Nabta, is a stone circle, a series of large, flat, tomb-like stone structures accompanied by 5 lines of standing megaliths, some of which are toppled. According to the University of Colorado astronomy professor J. McKim Malville, Nabta predates Stonehenge and other prehistoric sites around the world by almost 1,000 years. According to Malville, this is considered the oldest documented astronomical alignment of megaliths in the world. Not only that, but the construction of this site, which is purely ceremonial, requires a large amount of effort, as many of the stone slabs, which reach up to 9 feet high, had to be dragged to the site from distances up to a mile, or even further. Some of the more well-known megaliths of Egypt include the Temple of Hatshepsut, which was built on a terrace with 3 levels featuring a massive 100-foot causeway, leading all the way to the top of the temple, the walls of which were decorated with illustrations of the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. The Karnak Temple was built in the 14th century using sandstone and was built for the purpose of worship. Its pylon towers feature military triumphs and several pharaohs.
When I think of Egypt, the first picture in my mind is the Great Sphinx of Giza, one of the 8 wonders of the ancient world, which researchers have yet to determine for sure who built it. The Sphinx is a giant limestone statue that has the head of a human and the body of a lion. It's over 230 feet long and around 65 feet high. A 2015 article by M. Arbiter at mentalfloss.com states that the Sphinx of myth typically had wings of a bird, which this particular Sphinx does not have. One of the other features of the Sphinx, which is notably missing, is its nose. All kinds of myths surround the mystery of the missing nose, the most notorious of which blames Napoleon Bonaparte for blowing the nose away in a fit of militaristic pride.
I mean, what better way to, prove your worth?
Than rhinoplasty?
I'm gonna blow the nose off this Sphinx.
Oh my god, my nose. I look like Michael Jackson.
I thought of the same thing.
Anyway. So, while it's an amusing story, sketches of the Sphinx from the 18th century show pretty clearly that the rhinectomy occurred before little Napoleon was even born.
Dang it. I was hoping that was the thing.
My favorite aspect of theories regarding the Sphinx and other Egyptian monuments is obviously the ones which speculate on the ancient Egyptians' supernatural comprehension in regard to extraterrestrial matters. Some scholars have discussed the Sphinxes accompanied by the Pyramid of Giza's inclusion in a massive power harnessing machine, which was intended to absorb energy from the sun. Other such theories, specifically those of British writer Graham Hancock, note an alignment between the Sphinx and the pyramids and the Nile River with the star constellations Leo and Orion, as well as the Milky Way, which is really cool.
It is really cool. It's really neat to think about all these huge sites and how they mathematically align so perfectly with each other and with the stars.
And how the people had the thought to even comprehend.
It's because of the aliens.
Well, duh.
I mean, they're mathematically perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. They're not out of line at all.
You can't even slip a hair. Like between the blocks, which are constructed with no mortar. Are you kidding?
It's amazing.
I guess some people speculate that the blocks were made through using forms like concrete, so they would mix powdered sandstone with water and harden it, which is how they did it with forms and made them so mathematically perfect because they were all uniform.
Right.
But I read that maybe they tested them and found water content, but other people obviously question that, I guess. I don't know. There's lots of different theories about it.
Yeah.
Don't quote me because I'm not an Egyptologist.
Is that a thing? Is that a real
I don't know.
profession?
That would be cool. It'd be cooler if it did. Anyway.
That's true. Okay, so we've led the way to the pyramids of Giza, which according to the National Geographic contributor Brian Handwork, they were constructed
Anyway.
They were constructed around 4,500 years ago. In case you didn't pay attention in 6th grade history class, the purpose behind these amazing structures was primarily to prepare for the afterlife. The pharaohs erected temples dedicated to the gods as well as these massive pyramid tombs for themselves, and they filled their tombs with all the things that they thought they would need to sustain themselves in the next world.
I want gold.
Not only their riches and other possessions, if I recall, they may have taken servants with them also. Wouldn't that be horrible to be the chosen?
Well, think about those societies where if the husband died, they'd burn him on the
funeral pyres,
and the wives would have to go too.
They just have to burn on there.
Sorry.
That's your husband.
Nah, brah.
Nah is right. Bruh. The engineering feats of these particular pyramids are so impressive that scientists even today are uncertain of how the pyramids were built. I'm not saying
it's aliens.
Moving on.
In Indonesia, we find Bada Valley.
Bada
Valley, where hundreds of megaliths have been discovered, many of them carved into human-like forms with round eyes, eyebrows, cheeks, and chins, some even with large genitalia.
Of course.
Of course.
You know those.
Come on, guys.
You know what guys built that.
Don't be such a man. However, very little is known about them. I guess, I don't know. It doesn't specify male genitalia, but I don't know why you would carve a very large female genitalia. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it was like a sign of prominence.
Anyway. Okay. Very little is actually known about them. So they were first discovered in 1908, according to ancientorigins.net. It's still not been established for certain when they were made, nor are they certain of who created them. It's been debated if they were made by a culture which was responsible for other megaliths in other parts of Southeast Asia. However, the unique design of the Bada Valley statues leads one to believe that they were likely created by an entirely different group of ancient peoples.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you should see those pictures because they're kind of creepy.
Are they?
I didn't see any of the giant penises, but I did see some of the face statues, and it's kind of weird. As is the general consensus with most statues, ancestor Worcestershire.
I just looked this up, and it is called...
It's Worcestershire.
Worcestershire.
Yeah, Worcestershire.
I googled
but it's
it.
still funner to say Worcestershire.
Well, funner is not a word either.
More better.
More gooder.
Ancestor worship is the assumed purpose of these bad boys as well. There are legends that surround some of the statues, including one about a rapist who was turned to stone. That's what you get.
Right.
So this statue has really deep cuts or gouges in the stone, and it's rumored that these are knife wounds which were sustained by the rapist. Get stabby. Another such statue is considered to have been a village protector, but was turned to stone after stealing some rice.
Man, they're harsh. So he protected the village, but he stole a little rice, and they just were like,
I was hungry from being a hero.
Right?
There are plenty of theories regarding these stone figures as described in said Ancient Origins article. They may have possibly been erected with the intention of warding away evil spirit and possibly have powers of the supernatural variety, which I like. Some of the ancient cultures may have believed that the statues were able to move on their own from one place to another. It's very possible that these could have some relation to human sacrifices, or, as speculated in other cultures, were just tributes of respect to their ancestors.
I feel like there's been a lot of scary movies made like that, where they've moved around. Like, have you ever seen Mannequin?
What was that?
Mannequin.
I wonder if they've ever broke any of them open. What if it's like House of Wax and they just like put the people inside the stone? These particular figures are made from a stone which doesn't even originate in the area that the megaliths are currently standing. So it's likely that they had to be transported over a great distance, which brings us back to the question of how.
And why?
How?
Why did they make it in one area out of this stone and bring it to this specific spot?
Yeah. Well, they moved themselves.
They may have walked there.
They could have rocked and rolled because they're rocks.
You're so punny.
But yeah, I don't understand. You would think that with their limited technology, they would have tried to do things in a way that made it easier for them. So use the materials that are available in the area as opposed to finding specific materials in other areas and dragging billion-pound boulders over 100 miles to, I don't know. So which kind of makes you think, what are the significances of those areas, which we're going to talk about later.
Mathematical alignment.
And power spots.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway.
But still, even if they are power spots, why did they need that material in that spot?
Yeah.
It seems like there was a correlation there that it had to be specific.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like conductivity.
Or like a magnetic type
which
situation.
We're going to discuss.
Okay.
I love it.
All right. As you can see, Sam wrote this, and I have not yet read it. So
I'm trying to guide you through this.
I'm going along. I'm going along with this episode. This is all Sammy. All right. Let's bounce back in the direction of South America to Peru.
You said Sammy on here, and now people are going to call me that.
I didn't know you didn't like that.
There are a very limited number of people in the world that are allowed to call me that.
Like, what do you do to them if they do?
I will stab you.
She won't. She might. I don't know.
She might.
Don't know. She's never done it to me.
Actually, you'll like bust a beer bottle and stab me with it. You're way more likely to stab a mother than I am.
I am not.
Sheesh.
Sheesh. Well, I get really mad.
I might throw something at you, except you're also way more likely to do that than me. Exhibit A, laundry basket. Exhibit B,
laundry
laptop.
basket.
Exhibit C, butcher knife. Exhibit D, your husband.
Okay, the butcher knife situation was not true. It was a butter knife. He just exaggerates everything. Anywho. Okay. Let's bounce back in the direction of South America to Peru. Yes, we have to talk about Machu Picchu. How do other things get such cool names and I end up with Sarah?
Would you like me to call you Machu Picchu?
Kind of.
What was the name from that other podcast that we wanted? Oh, Keeper of the Eternal Flame.
Keeper of the Eternal Flame. I think that's one of the more fun names to say.
Machu Picchu?
Machu Picchu is built against a cliff, which has a sweet drop-off of about 1,300 feet and overlooks the Urubamba River.
I want Urubamba River.
Urubamba.
I want my name Urubamba.
Is that it?
Urubamba.
Urubamba River.
Urubamba.
La la bamba.
Urubamba.
Am I singing that right? Is it La La Bamba?
La
You don't remember La Bamba?
Bamba.
La, that's it. I think I was mixing Neil Diamond in that song. Right?
Yeah. Urubamba. Urubamba.
It's on there.
Yeah,
is that part of that song?
The
or is
end.
that the Neil Diamond song?
I don't think Neil Diamond has a La Bamba song.
I'm doing the Neil Diamond dance.
I've never seen Neil Diamond do that.
Well, in Saving Silverman, when they're imitating Neil Diamond, that's what they're doing. I guess I don't know.
You're doing Steve Zahn as Neil Diamond.
Steve Zahn did a mean Neil Diamond.
I thought we were in Panama.
Where am I at? Urubamba River. We got really sidetracked. Woo!
Sweet Caroline.
Bum, bum, bum.
Anyway.
The structure is built from granite rocks, some of which weigh over 55 tons, and were either pushed up the mountain by the bare hands of hundreds of men or chiseled from the side of the mountain itself. Machu Picchu was constructed with a technique called ashlar, which involves the stones being shaped perfectly so that the mortar was not required. Not even the blade of a knife could fit between these stones. They are so perfectly fitted. It is as yet unclear, as the Inca people did not keep any written records, what the intended purpose of the structure actually was. It was abandoned after having been populated for about 100 years, which has been speculated to have been due to an outbreak of smallpox.
Cannot confirm.
One of the coolest elements is that of one of the three main structures, the Temple of the Sun, the Room of the Three Windows, and the Intihuatana, The third is a stone that was created by the Incas, which is used as either a calendar or an astronomical clock.
The lesser-known Tiwanaku site in Bolivia was built around 1450 AD by a very short-lived society which, from my understanding, predated the Inca but tragically and suddenly collapsed around 1000 AD, likely due to severe and prolonged drought which caused crops to wilt and the waters of the Lake Titicaca to recede.
You're thinking of Kikiwaka.
Kikiwaka. The people were likely to have either migrated to a more sustainable area or simply starved to death. Sad story. In their time, however, they managed to build structures which continue to dumbfound researchers even to this day. Much like the Egyptians and the Inca, the structures were constructed of building blocks that should have been, in the time, almost impossible for them to move. One particular piece of sandstone, which weighs about 288,806 pounds, has been determined to have come from a quarry nearly 6 miles away from its resting place. How?
How is the question?
Literally, it had to have been claw machined by a UFO.
One time we found a boulder. It was like a boulder, like a huge rock in our hay field. And so we tried to move it.
Is that the one that they pranked you and painted pink?
No, that wasn't even our rock.
Oh, that was somebody else's rock.
Someone else's rock got painted pink.
Anyway.
So this one was half that size even. It wasn't even, it didn't look that big. And so I was like, oh, surely we can like push it up with the old truck or something, Nah. We had to get a bulldozer to move that. And it was maybe up to my waist, and I'm 5'3". So it wasn't huge or anything, but the amount of heaviness that was. I can't imagine this stone being moved at all.
Ever.
How? I don't know. Alien claws from spaceships.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Those tractor beams.
Tractor beams. Which brings me to my next point. Aliens.
Yay! Aliens. I've been waiting, but I'm always waiting to talk about aliens. Arguably, these stone structures that we have discussed this far could not have been built with the technical abilities and tools of the people of the time. Between the size of the building stones and the precision with which they were assembled in combination with the distances over which they were transported leaves many people speculating to actually...
Spatulating?
Or spatulating.
Pancakes.
Pancakes. What?
Spatulating. From now on, every time I make pancakes, I'm going to refer to it as spatulating. Anytime I flip anything in a skillet, I'm spatulating.
Oh, I love it.
Excuse me while I whip this out. And by this, I mean my spatula.
Leaves many people speculating who actually built these amazing structures. It is no secret that Giorgio Tsoukalos is one of our favorite people on the planet. If you don't know who he is, we'll tell you. Tsoukalos is the publisher of Time magazine, as well as a consulting producer and an on-screen personality of the show Ancient Aliens. He speaks directly about many of the monuments we discussed today. And just a reminder, we are merely presenting multiple points of view and theories on the possibilities speculated by researchers. With that said, I'm going to throw out some of his specific statements regarding these sites as they present questions that lay people like us might not consider. I am going to hijack a couple of quotes from a 2016 article by Dustin Turner. Find the link on our cited works listed on our website and read a little more in depth on the subject, or just watch Ancient Aliens. Tsoukalos.
And I'm going to go ahead and say, all disclaimers aside, I believe everything he says. Aliens. Giorgio Tsoukalos and Elon Musk, baby.
I find you very believable.
In regard to Tiwanaku, he says this, quote, "You find remnants of monuments that stood there thousands of years ago, and now all you find are gigantic platforms scattered about. There are sandstone slabs there, but there also is andesite, which can easily be discerned from the sandstone. Now, you cannot cut andesite with tools archaeologists say people had back then. According to archaeologists, they only had copper or iron tools. Right there, we have a problem, because you can't cut andesite with iron or copper tools. So my question is, how is it done?"
Beams from UFOs.
End quote. Yes.
Alien.
So we're all asking the same questions, but Tsoukalos, you're supposed to answer the questions.
Right. He keeps just asking, and I'm looking for answers.
He can ask, and Elon Musk can answer.
That's right.
I have faith in Elon. I'm looking to him to pioneer the future.
I like it.
Elon Musk.
We mention him in almost every episode.
Especially the ones that I write. And in all of the QE guys' lives, because Elon Musk is the answer to all questions.
Maybe. You're giving him a whole lot of weight here.
I say those things half seriously, half joking because
He's just a really cool guy.
I just really like the way that he literally is fumbling his way through his genius. Because, I mean, he's like a super intelligent person, but he's like tripping over his shoelaces, giving demonstrations about these indestructible cars.
He's a very likable personality.
And I love on the video, did you see that, where they were showing that new truck and they were supposed to be demonstrating with the bat how the windows weren't going to shatter?
I did not see this. What?
And they hit the windows with the bat and it shattered. And then they hit the second window with the bat and it also shattered, and his face was literally just, damn.
Dag nabbit. Tsoukalos points out 3 different masonry styles in Machu Picchu.
Johnny!
You good?
Yeah.
Specifying that the material at the bottom is significantly older than what followed with smaller stones. So he poses the question, why would older civilizations who supposedly had less technology use larger blocks?
Because they had the aliens.
Yes.
Of Easter Island, he poses the question of not necessarily how they carved the stones, because it's volcanic rock, which is very porous and easy to work with. But I'm interested in the question of transportation. The go-to answer is wooden rollers, but the moai are bigger than what you see, and many of the statues are partially buried. The weight would require enormous wooden rollers, but where are these rollers?
And many of the statues are not partially buried, they're like mostly buried.
Yeah.
They're huge.
We can verify what trees were on the island at the time, and those trees didn't have trunks big enough to use for this purpose. The fact that the island is one of the most remote places on Earth also poses some exciting points of speculation of ancient astronaut theorists like Tsoukalos. But if you think about it, when we talked about how they had overdone it with the cutting down and burning of the trees, it's possible that they used the rollers and then burned them for supplies.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So-
I think it is an arguable theory.
It's feasible.
Absolutely. It would just, I mean, that's kind of what I believe too. Except some of it, even with wooden rollers, that 200,000 pound
Yeah.
rock. I guess I'm not giving them enough credit. You know, they
Yeah.
were capable of amazing things, obviously.
Argues with your next point.
It does argue with this. Extraterrestrials aside, there are 2 modern views regarding megalithic sites. It's either viewed as a holy site having alignment with both the sun and the moon, which may indicate its significance for ritualistic celebrations of the changing season, such as summer and winter solstice. The other theory holds that it is in fact a scientific observatory, as the site aligns particularly with the stars for the purpose of predicting astronomical events, a megalithic calendar of sorts. Both of these theories are based on the site's celestial influence.
So, other than the obvious historical value and beauty, is it possible that these ancient sacred sites hold some supernatural or extraterrestrial power that our ancestors were aware of, but we do not understand in our modern age? Some would say yes. One resource, invisibletemple.com, discussed this very subject, where author Freddie Silva had very interesting theories on the subject. Many of the theories relating to the energy surrounding these particular sites are based on increased electromagnetism in the areas.
So before we go too much into these theories, let's discuss a little bit about electromagnetic energy. You are aware, of course, that we are by no means experts in this field. We are going to take this info straight from EMFsafety.com. So what is an electromagnetic energy wave? An electromagnetic energy wave is a complex form of energy composed of oscillating electric and magnetic fields joined together and capable of conveying energy to the matter it intercepts. Electromagnetic energy exists over a vast wavelength or frequency range. Infrared, visible light, ultraviolet light, X-rays, and gamma rays are all forms of electromagnetic energy at extraordinary frequencies. Electromagnetic energy follows clearly defined rules in its behavior, from the creation of the energy wave to the travel of the wave through space and the atmosphere of the Earth, and what happens when it meets matter of all kinds. The behaviors are sometimes complex and sometimes simple, but they all share the fact that whatever the electromagnetic energy wave is doing, or what energy is imparted into the things around it, is dependent on the wavelength or frequency of the energy wave.
A 2017 article by Forbes magazine discusses how the human body itself creates electromagnetic fields. I find this is relevant as it relates directly to some of the theories on the healing power present at some megalithic sites. I'm going to quote directly in order to make sure that we're doing an adequate job at explaining. So here's the quote. I want you to imagine me punching you hard in the nose. Trust me. It'll help make this description more fun. Imagine you said something rude about my mother if it helps. Did it hurt? I'm no fighter, but I imagine it probably did. Why did it hurt? Well, my fists connected rather rapidly with your face, and that ought to do it. But what does it mean to connect or touch? Our bodies are made up of cells which are made up of atoms. How can I punch you if your face, and indeed my hand, are just made up of fuzzy balls, fuzzy handballs? There's no concept of solid at this level. So why should my hand make contact with your face? The answer lies in the electric field. Every atom has its own electric field, and when you put two atoms close together, they can mess around with the electric field of the other. End quote. So according to this article, human bodies are in essence giant EMFs which hold our atoms together, allowing us to exist as a coherent entity. I think that's the end of the quote. I feel like this article did a really good job of breaking things down to a level that's easy to understand. I definitely understand getting punched in the face.
I don't, and I never will. Ow. I would be that guy.
Why'd you do that?
Why is it that when people visit these sites, they often report feeling strange sensations? These feelings are often attributed to being in awe of these amazing structures, but according to Freddie Silva, there's evidence that proves that this is not a simple case of being awestruck. Many of these locations have measurable increases in electromagnetic energy surrounding them, which creates an environment in which a person may be able to enter an entranced or altered state of consciousness.
Speaking of altered states, check out the Altered Thought podcast.
In case you were wondering, it's a podcast by
Sean Carroll of the Question Everything guys.
Yeah, they branched off. Made
Sean
a new...
and Semper Fi Rob.
Sean and Semper Fi made a new podcast along with the QE guys too. And it's pretty interesting. So give them a listen. Check it out. It'll blow your mind. Mind blown.
Thoughts altered. Okay.
Okay. There was a study conducted in 1983 by engineer Charles Brooker in an effort to locate magnetism at ancient sites. The site subject of this particular study was Rawwright Stone Circle, which is located in England. A magnetometer was used to reveal that a band of magnetic force was attracted to the stone circle through a narrow gap of stones, which acts as an entrance. The band spirals toward the center. There were 2 stones on the western side of the circle, and they were discovered to be pulsating with rings of alternating current, which are described as similar to ripples in a pond. The analysis led Brooker to state how the average intensity of the field within the circle was significantly lowered than that measured outside, as if the stones acted as a shield.
I think that's cool as shit.
That is cool.
Yeah.
How do they know? As such an ancient civilization, but how did they know which materials in these spots would create these results?
So part of me speculates that maybe since we're kind of spoiled as a people now, maybe they had enhanced senses. They could feel it more because, I mean, like us, we're desensitized to it because we are surrounded by increased, Wi-Fi. We feel that shit all the time.
It's everywhere.
You know, it's
where
everywhere.
None of that was here. So they could literally feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very good possibility.
I think so too. And if you think about it, they were probably a lot smarter because they weren't distracted by smartphones. They had nothing to do but just figure stuff out all day.
They got a team of people just figuring stuff out.
Just teaming up and figuring things out all day long.
They got teams of other people backing them up.
I feel magnets here. Let's put this here and see, you know?
Yeah, so I think I would attribute it a lot to they probably had more in-tune senses. I really feel that way.
I wish that all these things didn't exist today so we could have more in-tune senses.
Right.
And less cancer.
Right, less cancer for sure.
Thanks, Big Pharma.
And Wi-Fi. So other studies conducted by physicist John Burke discovered that the stones of Avebury are deliberately placed and aligned in order to focus electromagnetic currents to flow in a premeditated direction using an identical principle to modern atomic particle colliders, in which airborne ions are steered in one direction. So I don't know what that means, but it sounds fascinating.
Once again, very sciencey.
So the Carnac region of France is home to some 80,000 megaliths in a concentrated area. And it was also investigated and was found to contain similar spiritual technology at work. The lead researcher in this study, electrical engineer Pierre Moreau, was quite skeptical of the theory that megalithic sites may possess any power. His study of Karnak, however, revealed to him that its dolmens do appear to amplify and release energy throughout the day, with the strongest readings being noted at dawn. The voltage and magnetic variations follow a phenomenon known as electric induction. To quote Moreau, the The dolmen behaves as a coil or solenoid, in which currents are induced, provoked by the variations, weaker or stronger, of the surrounding magnetic field. But these phenomena are not produced with any intensity unless the dolmen is constructed with crystalline rocks rich in quartz, such as granite. I highly recommend you do some of your own reading on these studies. They are so interesting, and we can only include a limited amount of information in the time that we have for this episode. Me and Sarah were talking about on our break, we were talking about the why. Why would they have chosen the specific stones that they did, and why would they make their life so much harder by dragging specific materials such great distances to specific spots? But I think that goes along with them understanding the specific materials having greater conductivity for the electromagnetic energies in the spots where they took them.
Exactly. They knew that they would produce results there.
But also probably because the aliens told them so.
That's what I was saying. The aliens gave them this information.
We have the technology.
They're still helping us out with that. All right. The fact that there are so many cultures around the world that seem to observe and recognize that these certain places on the face of the earth possess a higher concentration of power than others leads me to believe that they can't be simply coincidence. The Hopi called these sites spots of the fawn, and these spots became the foundation for many of the sacred sites and temple structures that stand today. Even more interesting is that most of these cultures recognize an umbilical-like connection between these sites and what we would define essentially as their heaven, and that the human soul is capable of connecting to it during rituals, as well as acting as a conduit for the spirit world to enter into our physical plane. In 2008, NASA published details of the investigation into FTEs, or flux transfer events, in which they describe how the Earth is linked to the sun by a network of magnetic portals, which open every 8 minutes, which very well may prove these theories. I can't wait to start getting data from freaking Space Force.
Space Force!
I love Space Force.
Me too.
I am so excited.
So I want to expand on this theory a little bit. Imagine that the Earth is mapped out with a grid, lines that cross and crisscross from one important location to another, not longitude and latitudinal lines. Let's talk about ley lines. On our Facebook, I'm going to also post a map of ley lines that are thought to exist at this point. So in a sense, they're similar to latitude and longitudinal lines. However, these lines are said to be a sort of energy highway, electromagnetic energy to be specific, and they connect the ancient power sites. So there are those who believe that these ley lines and the sites that they connect are associated with UFO landings. Others claim that the power of these sites are capable of healing, or even that their powers may be psychic in nature.
While the concept of these theories absolutely excites and fascinates us, there isn't much in the way of hard evidence that these claims have any truth to them at all, aside from the straight lines that can be drawn on the map to connect the sites. It's hard to call that scientific proof. Patterns exist in almost every aspect in nature, and it would make logical sense for those who build these structures to make the traveling distance between them convenient to navigate. This doesn't necessarily grant them any specific power, supernatural or otherwise. However, let's assume that they are as powerful as they have been theorized to be. Evidence that the grid of the Earth has been studied in many cultures throughout history. According to Disclosed TV, as we understand them today, ley lines are connections of landmarks such as the aforementioned megaliths, prehistoric ceremonial sites, or church buildings. It is also claimed that it is just another name for terrestrial radiation. The closest explanation for the grid, again, according to Disclosed TV, was that it was a prehistoric system of national surveying which is based on astronomical principles and energetic foundations determine the location and orientation of the structures. Once again, I do highly suggest you do some of your own reading on these, and we will definitely do some more in-depth discussion on them in the future. Once again, Sam will post some of the map images on our Facebook page for you to check out.
I want to go back to the possibility of aliens.
Because we can't stop going back there.
Because it's so fun to discuss. The idea that amazingly so many cultures from around the world who could have had no possible contact with each other have somehow managed to create these amazing structures. And not only that, but the artworks and stone carvings from all over the world from all manner of ancient civilizations depict these visitors from heaven, even in flying machines at a time before any form of air travel was ever achieved, let alone conceived.
I think that is the coolest thing because it's not even just one set of people. I mean, these are people from various parts of the earth and from different points in time. Yeah. And they've left cave drawings, temple drawings, pyramid drawings, paintings by a famous artist. They all have, not all, but so many of them have some aspect of alien culture or some kind of culture, which some people Some people like to argue that it's a misconception.
Well, also, I mean, I can see where some people could argue that the Earth wasn't always laid out as it is now. Some continents were connected that aren't connected now.
And we know
so it's
that.
possible.
That's true.
Yeah. But the time, look at the
Exactly.
time frame. So anyway, all of these religious concepts from different versions of angels, demons, and gods from above, they had to come from somewhere.
Right.
Eric von Daniken, who is considered the father of ancient astronaut theory, suggested that Stonehenge is actually a model of our solar system.
Now, we also know that a lot of people shut down as soon as you say Eric von Daniken, but hear us out. Just hear us out and hear him out.
Even if you don't believe the stuff that he says, isn't just cool to think about?
We want to explore all the theories. We want to
theories.
explore all angles of this. So
Others might suggest that it was a landing site for UFOs or as an observatory for UFO watching. The idea that we as humans are not alone in the universe just excites the heck out of me. I know that we've kind of explored this idea in a couple of other episodes, but how can we not? There are almost 4,000 known planets around other stars, according to NASA. How is it possible that none are capable of sustaining life?
I think there is, and that's why we'll come up with something now that they've really been studying that with the Kepler telescope.
Yeah.
Remember we just discussed this in the Great Dying episode, and they've already found a few.
We as a people are getting so much closer to being able to find life other places.
I don't even think that we are not even close to the most intelligent life out there.
No.
You know, they've talked about, I don't remember which episode we talked about it in, but time slips where other beings have found this technology where it takes us years and years and years to travel a certain distance through space. They have been able to come up with technology that takes them straight through time, and straight through all these distances where they basically step through a doorway into where they want to be.
I would consider our society still as quite primitive.
Extremely.
And we have, the accomplishments that we have achieved over the last few decades is absolutely amazing. We've been capable of sending probes to explore other planets. We've managed to learn so much from the information sent back from these devices. We put humans on the moon, if you believe that actually happened. You can access...
Flags do not ripple in the vacuum of space.
Can even access weather reports from the planet Mars on a phone app.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Even our understanding of our planet, its history, and its functionality has grown leaps and bounds. However great a mystery, it still remains. Oh, so shout out to Angie with this extra long episode to get you all the way from point A to point B.
That's right. She's been upset with us because we missed last week because I was 100% dying.
Well, 99% because you made it.
I cracked through that, but it was rough.
But yeah, her drives are a little bit longer than our typical episodes, so we're trying to push the bounds to get her to her destination.
Going all the way, Angie.
All the way.
Here's your shout out.
Now, pay attention for the announcement of our contest this week so you can get yourself a DAMN mug.
That's right. You'll say the F word in here, but you're going to spell damn.
Yep. Continue on.
Carl Sagan. I've been waiting to talk about Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan said, it's an ancient human theme. You can find it in virtually every culture in some guise or other, in religion, folklore, superstition, and now in science. The search for life elsewhere is remarkable in our age because this is the first time that we can actually do something besides speculate. We can send spacecraft to nearby planets. We can use large radio telescopes to see if there is any message being sent to us lately. It touches the deepest parts of human concerns. Are we alone? How common is this thing called life? This thing called intelligence? Where do we come from? What are the possible fates of intelligent beings? Need we necessarily destroy ourselves? Might there be a bright and very long future for the human species? We tend to have such a narrow view of our place in space and in time, and the prospect of making contact with extraterrestrial intelligence works to de-provincialize our worldview. I think for that reason, the search itself, even without a success, has great merit. I believe strongly that truer words were never spoken. Even if we never find what we truly seek, look at all the knowledge that we have gained along the way. How could anyone argue that it's a waste of time or money or resources? Even the composition of the human body bears similarities on a molecular level to these stars themselves. The same carbon, nitrogen, iron, calcium, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms that compose the human body can be found burning bright out in the universe, obviously in different percentages. Carl Sagan said it best. We're made of star stuff. Oh, I love that.
I do too.
He's a little bit of a romantic.
He is.
I like him. I don't know about you, but that makes me want to put on some glitter.
Yes.
Actually, it doesn't. Sam totally wrote that, and I hate glitter so much. Sam,
But we're made of star stuff.
you just glitter it up over there.
It makes me happy.
While you're sitting by an enormous pink glittery unicorn from my daughter's room.
It cuddles nicely in my chair.
We'll post that on Facebook too.
All that said, it is also very possible that the pyramids were truly erected at the hands of hundreds and thousands of likely enslaved men with the great expense of blood, sweat, and lives lost.
You know what? It's kind of like today with the Nike. Did you see that meme today on Facebook?
Yes.
Where the Nike women are working for cents per hour to make these Nike shoes so they can pay Colin Kaepernick how much money to do these things that he is doing.
Like, talk about, human rights and oppression. An article from livescience.com explores the different theories that may have made this a possibility. One such theory is that the massive stone blocks used to build the pyramids were pulled by a contraption which was constructed for such a purpose, and the sand in front of the contraption was wetted down to make it easier to glide the blocks over the top of the sand. A 2018 article by Becky Little for History.com explains that a 4,500-year-old ramp system had been discovered, which could offer some explanation to how the pyramids were built. The ramp itself may have been used to haul stones out of a quarry and dates back to the time period of the pharaoh who's responsible for the construction of the Pyramid of Giza, whose name I am not going to attempt to pronounce. However,
wait, let's put a disclaimer in right there that thus far, all the things we have pronounced, we are very sorry if they are not correct. We did our best.
Which, when we check the pronunciations, most of the time they're being recited to us by robots, so cannot confirm accuracy.
Oh, British robots at that.
Right? However, this theory has been called into question regarding its significance regarding the construction of the pyramids, as the ramp was in an alabaster quarry, and we know for certain that the pyramids were not constructed of alabaster.
You got upset.
Well, don't try to tell me it wasn't aliens. Anyway.
Whoa.
Anyway. That was my passion.
Just hug the pink unicorn.
We're made of star stuff. Pet the furry wall. Pet the furry wall. I was really passionate about this. I don't know if you noticed.
That's good. The same goes for the blue stones of Stonehenge, which scientists have traced back to quarries 200 miles from their current resting place. One theory presented by Gary Levin is that they were transported by basket-like wicker cages that were used to roll the stones over long distances by large groups of men or even oxen, and were then used for flotation across rivers. However, the prototypes for these baskets have only successfully tested on slabs that weigh only 1 ton, which is just a fraction of the size of the blue stones of Stonehenge.
Falling short, Mr. Levin.
Mm-hmm.
A retired construction worker from Michigan named Wally Wallington.
Yes.
Yep. Demonstrated that a man alone could move a 1-ton concrete block by placing walnut-sized rocks underneath it and spinning them. With one person, this 1-ton stone could theoretically be moved 300 feet per hour. With a team of men, much bigger stones could be moved in such a way. I want to point out that he managed to prove this theory while building a replica of Stonehenge in his yard by himself.
What a stud.
Right? Wally.
Wally Wallington. That's how you do the things. We sort of already discussed the theory of log rollers for the ground transport, and then the conversion to rafts for floating up rivers. My favorite theory outside of the aliens theory is the magic theory. 12th century writer Geoffrey of Monmouth told the tale of King Arthur. He claimed that it was in fact Merlin who can claim credit for the construction of Stonehenge through the use of magic. Modern science, however, would claim that the stones predate the wizard, which is bullshit, if you ask me. A wizard arrives precisely when he means to.
So, that's it for this week's episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast. Hope you found it educational and somewhat entertaining. Make sure you check out the list of cited sources on our website, and you can continue to read up on this interesting topic. Also, if you're new to the show, make sure and hit that subscribe button on whichever app you listen from, and if you're feeling generous, give us a rating and a review. We love to hear your thoughts on the show, and we take all suggestions into consideration. If you're interested in winning some free stuff, follow us on Twitter and retweet the episode as it's posted on Twitter, or tweet the show link and tag us so we know, or just give us a shout out with the tag to be entered in our latest drawing.
Aw, tweet tweet.
No. Ah, tweet. You know you want to. You know you want to. Everyone loves free stuff.
So basically just get on Twitter and promote us in some way just to help
Yeah.
us out. You'll be entered into a drawing.
Yep, recommend us to your friend. Anyway, come back next Tuesday for another new and exciting episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast.
That was lame.
Come back next Tuesday for a new and exciting episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast.
Thank you for the excitement.
Breakfast
And thank you for listening.
Sorry.
What?
Taco Tuesday.
Margaritas.
Toilet seat.
Tequila.
Let's just say random things.
Headlight.
Guacamole.
All right, we're out.
We out.
Peace.